I heard that Ayn Rand said that she was under the impression that Immanuel Kant was evil, which would be, intentionally acting with malice towards the benefit of human life. And so I would, at least that's my interpretation of that word. So I would wonder what exactly led her to that conclusion, if you know anything
she
about that.
did think he was evil. She described him as evil. I don't know that she would define evil the way intentionally acting with malice towards human life.
Yeah. There's something along those lines, something intentionally detrimental to the prospering of human life.
Who would you think of as evil?
Like a Hitler or a Stalin or something like that. Yeah.
See, here's an interesting question to think about. What actually are the motives of those people as they held them? And,
you mean as they said in the press, or
as they themselves, like with Stalin, just I want to kill everybody I can, and that's how it stood to him in his own mind.
I guess we kind of don't really know what they really thought outside of what they voiced in the press. You know what I mean? Or you could say like a suicide bomber or somebody who's,
So we can read biographies of these people. In the case of suicide bombers, we can read the things that are written to encourage them to do it. And we have to assume that since these things are successful and get people to do it, they must have some kind of motivation in line with what's said in the propaganda for them. So in general, evil is a pretty difficult thing to understand. And it's very easy to make a cartoon of evil. So evil is something that's very alien to how normal people could actually be. There are a handful of people who are evil, maybe Hitler, but our ability to hold him as evil depends on our not thinking very much about what it might have been like inside to be him and people who were impressed by him. So I think in general, there's a real deficit in thinking about evil. And one view that I came to, I'll get back to Rand on Kant, in a moment, is that we have to understand evil as something that's, accessible to all of us. That we can be or understand how we could be in our worst moments. Otherwise, we don't really understand what it is. And we don't understand, for example, how a country could have gone under Hitler's spell. Because it's not just him. All these people voted for him, and people who didn't vote for him, but they executed his orders. And so, what is it that's going on that makes somebody like that? And if it at some level is hatred for human life, and I think in a way it is, it's not hatred in human life that presents itself like that in the forefront of one's mind and feels like mustache twirling kind of villainy. So if you want to get a sense of Rand's conception of what evil's about, read Atlas Shrugged, and you get James Taggart is evil. And he comes to realize he's evil over the course of the latter third of the novel. And Dabney comes to understand what it is for him to be evil. And not just him, but Lillian and several of the other characters. And so when Rand's thinking of Kant as evil, and what she said was evilest man in history, if there are degrees of evil, so she kind of qualifies it, she's thinking that he's got a psychology like that. And what that kind of psychology leads to is actions that are in some way destructive, and in Kant's case, were destructive on a grand scale. And I don't think this isn't something one should try to assess until one's thought a fair amount about evil in more ordinary villain cases. And one thought a lot about Kant to see if you think this is really what he's trying to accomplish. So if you think that evil is being driven not by values that you want to achieve, but by things that you want to destroy because they make you feel anxious or insecure, and the anxiousness or insecurity you feel about them doesn't go down to some positive value you're trying to achieve that these somehow stand in the way of, but it's like goes all the way down. That's what's motivating you. You might tell yourself there's some positive thing behind it, but if you look, it's really not there. Like James Taggart really gets excited about wanting to put down Francisco. And he tells himself he's got other motives for it, but as it becomes clearer and clearer that what he wants is to break things. And the reason he wants to break them is because they make him feel insecure. And whatever else he says about what he's trying to achieve becomes more and more transparently a rationalization, and he's being kind of moved by hatred. Now, I think that kind of being moved by hatred is something that's present to some extent in most people. Not enough to make you evil and not kind of pure and naked. But if you hate Obama, or you hate Bush, or you hate Trump, is it all purely, these are the positives you're trying to achieve out of life, and these are the ways in which you see what they're doing as thwarting it, and your hatred of them totally flows out of that and is totally proportionate to it, and you only dislike those things about them and to that amount, and it's subordinate in your value hierarchy to what you want to achieve, or is some part of it just son of a bitch, right? And I just want to destroy him, and so I'll vote for someone who's just as bad but's on the other side, right? Which motive is it in you? It's easier to see in other people than in yourself, but haven't you seen that in people? Some kind of like, I just want to burn it down motivation. And when you kind of press on, well, what are you going to try to achieve by that? Sometimes that's not too clear, but the rage bit is clear. Or the insecurity bit, I hate that guy because he makes me feel bad about myself. But if you see that in people, maybe you see it sometimes in yourself and you can correct it in yourself. But that kind of thing, the kind of not caring what's true, but just caring about your hatred or discomfort in something, that I think is the essence of evil, and that is the essence of Rand's villains. Now, forget Kant for a moment, whether he really was like this. You have to read him and think about him and read a bit about his life and see if this is what you do. But imagine an intellectual who sees kind of religion and religious morality dying, who sees a lot of new bourgeois and industrialists and so forth who are very proud of themselves, who don't follow the kind of uptight, rigid, anti-happiness moral precepts he were brought up with, and who seem to be enjoying life. They should be suffering and not, but that damn blacksmith, he seems so happy with his girlfriend that he's sleeping with before marriage. Imagine someone who like that really gnaws at them. The fact that people don't follow his moral code, and yet they seem to be enjoying their lives and not suffering like they should be. And maybe there isn't really a hell for them to go to. And maybe I should then for change how I live, because there really isn't a reason to be like this. No, that's scary. I'm good because I'm like this and I was always a good boy. And you have that kind of a mindset. And you project a similar thing in other areas of life. And then whose intellectual mission is kind of to defend that posture that you have to yourself, that kind of distaste for the people who are pursuing their own happiness as opposed to your moral scruples, that what it is about you that lets you pride yourself on being very chaste and so forth. And not wanting to face certain questions you're afraid of facing. And you take that constellation of things, and that drives you to concoct an elaborate system of thought, part of which involves undermining the things that are the causes of human progress and civilization. And that's what drives you in life, and you succeed at it. And it does undermine a lot of good things in the world and leads to a lot of bad and suffering and harm. So that's how Rand viewed Kant. And it's a question as to whether that's true of him. And, read some Kant and see what you think's, moving the guy. And it's not really all that important a question in the end, I think. I think it's not like we shouldn't care what motivated Kant or Hume or Rand or any other philosopher. But it's a less important question than what's true.
Okay, thank you.